Fabian, I'm really excited to have you here, and really curious to hear your thoughts on some of the things that we have lined up. Just to kick things off, since you've especially been in a role where you've been a security leader in so many different environments, one of the things that I'm curious about is what do you think are some of the attributes that security leaders need to have, or behaviors they need to exhibit, in order to stay ahead of the curve, in order to do their role well?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I had an interview on that, or nearly the same topic. It was about technology leaders, and I think there is quite a good overlap. First, I would start with the definition. So, security leader for me is somebody with excellence in the field. And this excellence gives the person the ability to optimize the performance of the security in this case, quality and the resources. And I think if we talk about three major attributes, first is understanding the business. So this person needs to really get the vision and the mission to make fact-based decisions or support these. The second one is leadership skills. So for me, security is not a one-man job, and we all know that it's getting more and more complicated. We need more and more resources. And also with the remote work, leadership communication is super important. To reach out effectively, especially in the remote work, being empathic to people, delegate properly. And in the end, it all comes back to employees and people. So communication and leadership is super important for me. And also we see that in the last or recent news all the time, like the C-level communication and executive communication. And that's also a big part why leadership skills are really necessary. And the
That
last
makes a lot of
attribute I would say, yeah. Last attribute for me is focus. So there is so much noise, news, social media, trends, false positives, every tool you have in your stack. So if you have a plan and there is a North Star, and that's directly attached to the InfoStack strategy and also to the business mission, which I mentioned earlier before, then you should always execute towards that plan. So everything else is not important. So we only do things which support this overall goal. And I personally really like the Eisenhower. It's super simple. You say what's important and urgent, and it's something like incident classification for me. Yeah. I think
Got it.
that's top three for me.
That makes a lot of sense, Fabian. If I may just recall and paraphrase what you said, basically
Sure.
the first thing is to understand the business, and consequently the role of security in that business. The second bit, at the end of the day, security at the end of the day involves working with people, and it's important to be able to lead and communicate very clearly about what the goals are and how you're going to achieve them. And third thing, I don't think I could agree more with you. There is so much noise, there's so much to do in security. Finding the bits that are actually critical to your objectives is perhaps one of the hardest and most important things simultaneously about what a security leader needs to do. That's immensely helpful to just boil it down to three important things. Thanks so much for that, Fabian. Which sort of dovetails nicely into the next question that I had, which is, threats are getting more and more sophisticated than ever. There is what's really happening at the bleeding edge of the kind of threats that we see is only expanding, and no doubt this adds a lot of stress to the job that security leaders have to perform. In your mind, are there tools or platforms that you believe would make a CISO's life easier? And if you could recommend some of the top three tools that you think a CISO would always have in their kitty when they're going into 2023, what would you say those are?
Understand. Yeah. So if we talk about tools, I would think vice versa. So what are the statistics for the threats, for example? No. So
Right.
where is most of the pain or danger, and then the biggest impact also for the business? And if we now look at the hybrid workforce, I would always say XDR is one of the top tools, also for CISO, at least with like read writes to see which incidents are happening and how are things automated and things like that. But that depends already a little bit, or also a little bit more on the org. I mean, if you don't have a lot of endpoints, then XDR is not super important because the blast radius is maybe smaller. Supply chain is a big topic. So I would also say tools for CI/CD pipeline, especially early CI/CD security. That would be second tool of choice for me. And if we talk about trends, maybe also, and a little bit the future outlook, something with AI, you know. So what kind of AI? The last years, I always looked for making numbers easier to understand and also to correlate the data. And still, we don't have the tool of choice, I think. Cybersecurity risk quantification is a huge thing, and it's getting more and more important. And we have like many vendors which have totally different approaches on that. But I think AI can really help us here to get in the final, how do you say, the final thing is missing to make that tool really appropriate for organizations. And here especially, I think that complements super good to traditional security methods, flagging the risks appropriate. And that's why I really like the idea.
That makes a lot of sense. Interestingly, I was at RSA last week, and there was another place to actually see the breadth of tools that are available. And I think if you look at the new generation of tools, they match closely with what you said. So we did see a lot of XDR vendors, especially given remote work is a new reality post-COVID, or some companies are at least hybrid. Most companies are at least hybrid, if not completely remote. So that's becoming a reality. That's definitely like one category of tools that's exploding and becoming increasingly important, even though it's been around for a while. Your point about using AI to sort of distill what's usually an extremely subjective exercise like risk quantification to make it something more concrete and just give numbers that senior management especially can look at and make a lot of sense of. That makes a lot of sense. So I think we should be able to see some exciting things in this space going forward. Hey, Chris is here. Hi, Chris. Glad you could join us.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
No problem.
No,
we also
no
had a rumpy start, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, since I have you here, and I was just talking to Fabian about a question that I had, and I'm really curious to get your thoughts on it. And my question was about threats getting more and more sophisticated as we go into 2023. And are you would you recommend 3 areas or tools or platforms that you think would make a CISO's life easier, and you think that a modern CISO should have this in their in their repertoire as they go into 2023, given that new threat landscape?
Well, I think it really depends on the maturity of the organization, because you just don't want to recommend tools without fully understanding the threat environment and the threat landscape. But overall, I would say first, start with the identity plane and ensure that there's some sort of multi-factor or secondary factor authentication, even well-encoded rotating secrets for your high-profile individuals and or developers, admins, things like that. I would even say for your CEOs that might become the threat target, find ways to help them defend themselves and defend their organizations. A second, I would say, is ensuring that they're able to capture and log some of the threats that are happening into their environment. So that could be a SIM, a SOAR. If you're a smaller organization, you can use a managed service security provider to help with that. But that at least gets you eyes on what's happening to your environment and what are some of the things that you need to protect against. And then for the last part, it really depends if you use a lot of SaaS or you develop your own applications, is to really figure out and monitor any APIs that you might have, understanding the data that flows through those APIs and protecting your data where it's stored, when it's traveling, and then where it goes. And that includes your third-party vendors and understanding their posture in regards to protecting your data. Because in the end, you'll be the one on the front lines and on the newspaper, not them.
Makes a lot of sense, Chris. Thanks for sharing that. I think the thing that you said at the beginning struck me the most. At the end of the day, there is no one size fit all, and you have to be really cognizant of what's really relevant to you as an organization, and then depending on that context, you got to pick your tool set. That makes so much sense. That brings me to my next question, and Fabian, I'd love if you could lead on this. Being a security leader involves building an org-wide mindset of looking at security as a long-term practice rather than just a audit season frenzy. In your opinion, how should leaders approach this slippery slope?
Yeah, I think that fits really good to the first question we had, to the leadership topic. And if we start with the business and then think of understanding the mission and the vision, we can better communicate to all employees. And if we go into the departments, for example, as a new CISO, to just have these talks, and the best talks don't happen in the office or in a meeting, they happen in the kitchen, when you get your coffee, and then somebody says, oh, I don't know, we have this user and we don't use encryption here, and that service is not needed, but the port is still open. And these things with IT guys, it's just flowing if you're communicating in a less business fashioned way. So I would always try to go these directions. Start with the business, go into the departments, don't make it super formal. And I think there is a really good diagram, the MindMap 2023 for CISOs. And that had a new part in it, selling InfoSec, internal branding. And I think that's a really, really important one to make what you said, like, how do you approach the slippery slope? And I think that's how you can really change the way you talk about security and you improve your security. Yeah, I'm curious about Chris' takes on that.
Yeah, me too.
I would say, even from my days in help desk, that was always one of the things that helped me the most, is really working with the business leaders to understand what they were doing now and what was coming down the pipe. Same thing for security. You don't want to wait until you're about to onboard a SaaS provider that's going to hold all your crown jewels, and then you go, wait, we didn't validate that for security. No, you want to be working with them from when they're planning their next 2 or 3 quarters to understand what their needs are going to be going forward. And then what you can do as a security leader to enable the business and to even help them be more proactive in finding the solutions that they need, and maybe recommending to them solutions. Hey, you were looking for this type of solution. These were some of the ones that I've worked with colleagues, they've recommended, they've already done some good security evaluations on. We could take a look at that and help you evaluate that for your needs, and be proactive with them, because in the end, without a business, there's no need for security.
Yeah, makes so much sense. So Chris, that sort of leads me nicely to my next question. And we might joke about this, but that there are usually like a couple of points in time in an organization where they start looking at the controls that they run a lot more seriously. One, God forbid there is an attack. Two, it's audit time. And my question really is that I've seen security leaders seem to have fairly polarizing views on compliance. Some believe that it's just a starting point to security, and it's just baseline checkbox stuff, while others also think of it as a way to actually get budget and buy-in for the things that you want to do. So I'm curious where you stand on this.
Well, I would say you need to understand the compliance and regulatory environment that your business is in, because that is going to either enable or inhibit your business to grow. So you can use that regulatory environment to help create a baseline for the business. Like, this is table stakes, what you need to do, but we need to be up here. So don't use your compliance requirements as like, this is where we need to get to go and we're done. No, security is a continuous journey, and meeting regulatory requirements is just table stakes to be in the game.
Got it. Fabian, I'm curious, what do you think about this?
Yeah, thanks, Chris, to summarize that, because yeah, I think that's so highly discussed, even from other experts. I always see it like compliance does not equal security. It's like seatbelts don't equal safety. Said no one ever, and they do not prevent all injuries, and that's how it is. Nobody told you to make it a checkbox, and even if it's a checkbox, it's better to check it month by month, because then it's effective, and this is the thing for me. They should complementary support each other, security and compliance, and they should not be divided. And if you're working in that field or this field, then you have to understand it. It's like if you're a business owner and you say, I don't care about sales numbers or taxes or whatever. All these things are important for your daily work. So I think I'm totally with the opinion of Chris. Thanks. Yeah.
That makes so much sense. Right. So, let's get to the brass tacks, and we are obviously in an era where the exuberance of 2021, 2022 is sort of on the downswing, and we are in a downturn. And depending on who you're talking to, we are already in a recession, or we're going to be in a recession, and those kind of things. So there's a lot of internal budget scrutiny inside companies, and security and compliances are no exceptions to that. And from your perspective, Fabian, how do you think CISOs should approach this? How can they do more with less in the current times? And you have any recommendations in this?
Yeah, for me, it's two things I see in the future, and I think one of them was always present. It's all about risk management and prioritization. So that's just the overall goal. That's what we need to do daily. That's our job. And I think the second thing, which is more new, creating a security automation role. I think it will be super helpful for every CISO. So I think that's a point where you need to put the budget in, and you get a lot out of it. Reduce manual work, simplify, things like that. And it's not just a tool, it's one person automating everything you can automate in a proper way. That are my two takes on it. Yeah.
That makes sense. Chris, I'm curious, what do you think here?
There's two approaches you could take here. One is taking it from a cost perspective. Security is something that needs to be supported by the whole organization. So technically, they don't own the risk. So their budget should be shared from all the different departments. That's one approach that you can use. The other approach you can use is, these are the requirements for fundamental safety from the organization. And then these are the things that the different departments might need. So you can split the costs more evenly depending on the department. But the security leader shouldn't be the one fighting for the budget. They should be working with the business and saying, hey, let's enable this initiative. And security becomes part of that initiative. And the business pays for it as they get their features, and they get more sales from that, or they get more customer retention from that. Whatever the situation is, you work with the business so that you're their partner in it, and they share the cost.
Oh, that's actually a great insight, Chris. So if I understand what you're saying correctly, it's rather than thinking of this as a security budget, you sort of co-own the budgets with the departments or the business lines inside of the company, and make it a more of a business objective rather than just a security objective.
And I would also like to add here, for me, that's the risk management. Opportunities and chances are also included. So I'm on the same side.
Okay, actually, that's a great tool. I don't think too many CISOs or people in security leadership roles have thought of risk management as a as a budgetary tool, it's a great way to actually align the org together and say that, hey, by the way, we all agree by your own admission that these are the threats that you see, and we need to do something about this. So let's write some dollars over there.
Yep.
Great. So folks, that's most of what I wanted to cover in the conversation. I think we are on the clock as well. We had a few hurdles, but I think I'm glad that we were able to cover the topics that we did. I learned a lot from this conversation. I really enjoyed it. Aarti, you had something at the end to add to this thing and make this even more fun.
Yes, actually love the session. We do have one or two questions there. Do you want to see that, and then we can go ahead.
Let me just check that.
Yeah, one question.
If you could reiterate the question, please. Thanks.
Yes, one question in mind for the panel. What are your thoughts on the use case of AI in the life of a CISO?
You want to take that, Fabian?
Yeah, I think I already covered it a little bit. So from my perspective, it was like trying to use AI in a secure way to enable security and the business, for example, to optimize cybersecurity risk quantification. And what I also like, I saw a Google article, I didn't go into it, about their new security AI strategy, but for the Microsoft side to enable SOCs, for example, the new security copilot, I think that's a game changer, because in a SOC, for example, you always have these bottlenecks in forms of resources and employees. And I think if we use these tools accordingly, we can really speed up and benefit from them. Yeah. Any thoughts from your side, Chris?
Yes, so I'd say there's a pro and a con to anything. One of the challenges with using a third-party AI tool is that you don't know how that AI was trained, and you don't know how that decision-making is made. Many AI leaders will admit that they don't know how the AI makes the decision. They just are able to predict the general direction that it makes. So if you understand the risk that's involved with using AI in the different areas, whether it's a generative AI in creating outputs, or it is an interpretive AI in helping you to understand requests, then that's a risk that the business can take. But we as a security team are there to inform the business on the potential risks and work through with them. And if they choose to take that risk, then we try to do so as safely as possible.
Great, Ed. Thanks.
Yeah, it makes so much sense.
We have one more question. Christoph, what is the most common security mistake you see businesses make?
I would say is not fully understanding the reach and flow of their identities and their data. With the explosion of SaaS and other third-party services, they don't fully understand how their businesses use third-party services, and then once they are used, what sort of data and how that's flowing. And I'd say that's as true for smaller businesses as larger businesses. It even becomes more complex as you grow if you don't have a good mechanism to monitor.
Okay. I hope, Anvita, I hope that answered your question. We have one more that's coming up. Where Christopher, I'm just going to pin this up as well. So when you say departments should share the investment or the effort in the implementation, we will see certain roadblocks where some departments will have challenges, which would be a priority more than security. So how should we tackle such challenges?
Well, security, just like any business initiative, is a priority. It is a decision that they need to make. Do they want to prioritize getting this business feature, or continuing to hold the risk of the technical debt that they've acquired through time? And that is their choice. And if they prioritize features over technical debt, it is a risk that they continue to hold in their portfolio, whether they want to admit it or not.
And then it all comes back to the risk management.
Exactly.
Okay, Christopher, I hope that answered your question. If you have any follow-ups, you can feel free to add it in the chat, or you can even reach out to Christopher and Fabian on LinkedIn. We've dropped their links. Okay, so if any more questions are there, I'm just going to take one last look, and then we're going to go right into the cybersecurity meme review. So as you guys know, memes are the best way of communicating complex ideas or like trends to the people, and security being something that needs to be communicated to a lot of non-tech people. I think memes have gone a long way in us understanding what breaches are, what's an incident response. And personally speaking, for me, it's Printo. I understood most of compliance only through memes. So without further ado, I'm just going to go right into the meme review, and we're going to see. Uh, and then like Chris, Girish, and Fabian are going to rank them based on how relatable they are, and we're going to get a passing or failing from them. All right, let's jump right into it. So the first meme came from Fabian today. This is all about a security audit. Fabian, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I think that's what we see outside when we do audits, especially if the companies do not have any compliance automation active. Yeah.
Chris,
So it's like it's like that, before the audit, when the audit comes, like 1 month, and after the audit.
Well, I would say, unfortunately, it's true. What I would actually recommend to folks is that they use audits to really find where their risk is and then to properly manage it. Auditors should be your partners in this to help you find that risk so that you can manage it properly, because sometimes your teams are so deep in the weeds that they don't see the risk when it's right in front of them. So auditors help kind of provide that extra check and balance.
Okay. So would you rate this meme as a passing or a failing?
Unfortunately, a passing.
Girish, what about you?
Yeah. I've seen this so many times, and this is so relatable. Like a dark green over here.
All right, Fabian, or I'm assuming it's definitely a passing for you, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we're going right into the next one. So I don't know about you guys, but this is the hard relate for a lot of people who we polled with to see which memes relate the most to you. Do you guys have pets?
No, in this case, me not.
What about you, Chris?
Pets, children, family members. Once it comes to rating them, unfortunately, you shouldn't have to do this, but it's a way that they found to validate an identity. But with all your information that's out there on social media and breached in other companies, we need to find a better way to do this.
Girish, what about you?
I think this meme works at so many levels. Asking questions as a way of doing any sort of security, and the second one, we use pets as answers, or at least seemingly secret answers to questions, pet names, children names, etc. Not a great idea, but I think the meme works at many levels. So like it.
Okay, so I'm going to take this as a passing. I think this is an age-old meme, all about security awareness. You don't realize how important fire safety is till the house is on fire. So, any experiences with the kind of questions that come to you when employees or orgs are not aware about the importance of security? Any fun tales to share?
I would just say, just like people don't like taking long courses, they shouldn't be forced to sit down through long security awareness sessions. Find a way to microtize the information, and then don't make it a one and done, because like most people don't know how to use a fire extinguisher. They'll forget it when it comes to security as well. So it needs to be part of the culture and totally part of every decision that you make.
Fabian, what about you?
Yeah, I think Garish also had that in the beginning of the meeting. Like security gets important when you are in incident response and things like that. Yeah, that's what we often see outside. I also agree with it.
Okay. Girish, I know personally that we have proper security like training modules at Sprinto. We now have it for multiple frameworks. Uh, was this meme at all an inspiration for you before you made that decision?
No, I think I sort of align with what Chris and Fabian were hinting at as well. I think the responsibility lies on both sides. Yes, it's important, but it's also important for the org to make sure that it is disseminated in a manner that makes sense to the employees at the end of the day. You can't expect this to be like completely the employee's responsibility that to understand why security is important. It has to be made accessible, whatever awareness training that you're doing, so that it doesn't look like an impediment and just a checkbox, and I can actually do it in a meaningful manner.
Okay. And as it's the fourth, we must have a Star Wars meme. So what do you think? This has quite often happened now, like multiple softwares. What's your take on it?
I love when they say, "Oh, incorrect is my password." But yes, unfortunately, it's true.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say that you approve Baby Yoda meme.
I'm a huge
Okay.
Baby Yoda fan.
Nice. Who isn't? Okay, here's a question for the three of you. You guys are big security leaders. How many unopened emails do you have on your inbox right now? Oh, did you just
Yeah,
say
I'm an inbox zero guy.
I'm an inbox zero person. I aim for that. Like, I don't open it if it looks scammy. Click the, hey, this is a phishing. If not, junk mail. But yeah.
No way. Fagan, what about you?
Same. So
Oh, man.
I really clean up. Yeah.
I think this is the first time.
Maybe that's a security thing. I don't know.
I think this is the first time that we're having this conversation where no one has anything on, like everyone's have got a zero inbox rule. Just to give context, I think I have like 3,200 unopened emails. I think I have to go and sort it out. I have to take an example from you guys. And the final one is this. How I think I look.
I'd agree with that. And actually, that's where it comes in, that security leaders are really business leaders. So if you can't find a way to have a compelling narrative with the business, you look like you're whacked out.
And I think that's a perfect ending for today, because that's how we started with the first question. I think that was my answer in this case. Yeah.